Where's your chumash? Everybody have a chumash?
Yudad Kislev, Shirkali, Tushin, Sonic Test. Parshas Vayishlach.
Right, so we're turning in this week's Parsha Vayishlach, chapter Lamed Beis, near the end of the chapter 32. Well, it's actually chapter 33. I'm sorry, chapter 33. Posik Beis V'Gimel. So this is the historical meeting between Yaakov Avinu and Esau. After Yaakov Avinu sent the messages to Esau, and they came back with negative reports, not according to his expectations. Nonetheless, he prepares himself for for war and for giving gifts. And he also davens. This is well known, the famous three preparations for the meeting with Esau that Yaakov Avinu made. So it's written that Yaakov Avinu, by Esau, Yaakov Eseinu, at the beginning of the chapter, he elevated his eyes, Vayar v'hine Esau bo v'imei ava me'esish. That he saw Esau is coming, and he's accompanied by 400 men, or 400 followers, or henchmen, or whatever you like to call them, are together with Esau. And we'll see, well, we won't see in this year, but Al Chapanim, it's discussed in other places. The Alter brings in Torah, what are these 400 men? Who are they? What do they represent? In Ruchnias Inyonim, but however, it was a considerable force coming with Esau. And so he divided up the children according to their mothers, as is brought down in the rest of the Pesukim in detail. And then in Pasuk Gimel, who over lifneim. First of all, he arranged all the children according to their mothers, that they should go out and greet Esau. However, it's written that he went in front of them. Who over lifneim. Yaakov Avinu, in simple terms, he went around in front of them. Vayishtachu arzo sheva piyomim. And he bowed down to the ground 7 times, ad gishtei ad achiv, until he eventually approached and reached his brother. So now that means that each time he bowed down, he was moving forward somewhat. But that's a lot of times to bow down to one person. Sheva piyomim, bowed down, moved another bit further, bowed down again to Esau. And then, in reply to that, Vayorotz Esau likrosai, Esau came running to Yaakov, v'yichabkehu, and he hugged him, gave him a hug. Vayipel al tzavora v'yishokehu. He fell on Yaakov's neck, and he kissed him, vayivku, and they both wept. So we see that according to one opinion in Rashi, that Itaka kissed him b'chol libay. Abba Isarege, Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that even though it's a halacha that Esau hates Yaakov, but at that particular moment, he bowed down to him b'chol libay, didn't he? Your job is to look in your chumash, not to schmeichel at other people. All right? And he bowed down, even though he kissed him and everything. He did it b'chol libo b'isa rega. As is from Shimon. So as a sort of unbelievable shaila, what was Yaakov Avinu doing, bowing down to Esau? Not only bowing down to him, but 7 times. So Amos had brought a positive result. Pastors, unexpectedly, Esau shows a lot of what you might call emotion or brotherly affection and runs and kisses him. But until then, he talking that Yaakov would bow down to Esau. What was it? And not only he bowed down, but 7 times, one after the other. And at the beginning of the parsha, we see that immediately when he sends the malachim to Esau, he says that you must tell Esau, Koi Oma Avtecho Yaakov. This is what your servant Yaakov has to say. So why does he have to call himself Esau's servant? And then we notice that if you count it carefully, there's 8 times in the parasha that he calls Esau is how do you call it? His Lord. Calls him Adoni, calls him my Lord or my ruler. But that's a sign of bittul and I would almost call acceptance of the other person's superiority in a high form. Yitzchak benched Yaakov that he would be the balabas over Esau, but he benched him that Esau would be batel to him. It worshippers that Yaakov shows all this tremendous bittul to Esau. It reaches its highest point and bows down to him, and it's done. So Rashi here, and Bechlav in the Parsha Ad Nakuda Hazu, Rashi doesn't seem to make any great issue out of the fact that Yaakov did that. He doesn't comment about it in any real noticeable way. That Yaakov Avinu called him Adoni, and he called himself Avdecha. And even here, when I get to the bowing down to him 7 times, Rashi doesn't comment about it openly. It's only that he says later, when I get to Esau, that when Esau saw all these bowing downs, all these Sheva, Ishtachavoyes, that then it had an effect on him, even though he intended being nasty, or he intended being aggressive, he came and Taki Bo'isarega, Noshke B'chol kissed him with all of his heart. So we see that according to Rashi, the 7 Ishtachavoyes were a way to make Esau look mercifully at Yaakov. In other words, it was like what you might call an emotional or brotherly type necessity in order to bring out the best possible reaction in Esau. And therefore, Ein B'zeh Tmir Kokach. Rashi doesn't make any big wonder about it or even comment about it negatively or positively. We don't find he mentions the whole meaning of Avdecha v'Adoni. We have to say then that Rashi holds that we have to say that he's there, that Rashi holds that Ein B'zeh Tmir Kokach, that here Yaakov is looking for favoritism by Esau in this particular moment. Not that it's got any real historical value or mashmoid beyond that. And here he's coming with Arba Meis Ish Imoy. And Yaakov Avinu's heard that he's not what he hoped right from the beginning. The Malachim came back and he gained the information or no information or whatever he gained from the Malachim. He gained that Esau wasn't what he'd hoped for. And the far Rashi learns that it's a natural thing if you're coming to your elder brother in years, and he's got a force of Ava Ish, Imre, and you've never heard any open forgiveness for him from him by his mind that he wanted to kill you a few years ago. Yes, already a few years. It's 20 years ago. And not only that, he sent his Bechoyer, Eliphaz, to carry out the task. As Rashi brings down in previous parashas that Esav sent Eliphaz to Rachmanin and to kill Yaakov. And Yaakov Avinu persuaded him out of it, and he talked him out of the whole idea. And he persuaded him that only Choshiv Kamei, so Rashi brings in the previous part, or at the end of Pasha told. And the far, Rashi says it's a normal thing, if you're facing a man that's bigger than you, you don't know, you haven't any clear indication if he's prepared to make shalom or to look at you mercifully. And therefore you have to be diplomatic, and you have to be bagabatish, and you have to call him Adoni, and you might even have to bow down to him. And Taki, Rashi says that when he saw all that bowing down, then that's what made the success out of the meeting, at least on purely what you might call safety level. That's what made peace out of the meeting. Comes along the Ramban, what's going on at the Ramban, one of the main motivations in writing his Pirush al Kol HaChumash was that he wanted to show how he differed with Rashi, b'chol minei oifanim, b'chol minei inyanim, and to write new opinions that people shouldn't only follow the opinions of Rashi. It's one of the reasons why the Ramban wrote Pirush al HaTorah. Comes along the Ramban, and the Ramban says that basically there was a mistake here with the ganze inyan of Yaakov and Esav. And he says that Esav, Bechlal, might have heard that Yaakov was leaving Beis Lavan, being as he was accompanied by a lot of flocks and a lot of people. It probably got around like things get around nowadays, even without faxes and emails and SIMs and all the other Babylonian apparatus that there is in the modern world. It probably got around that Yaakov was leaving Lavan, or Esav was going in another direction. It says Mashma from the Tailors Divrei Hayom in Moaim that Esav wasn't dafki looking for Yaakov. He heard that Yaakov was going past there, so he decided maybe he will come, particularly Yaakov sent Malachim to him. Says the Ramban, that was a big mistake. You didn't have to go looking for Esav. Again, as they say, you just let him go. He wanted to go on his way and keep out of your way. Then why did you have to go looking for him and sending Malachim? And Befat Rashi learns that they were Mamish Malachim. But the famous Torah from the Maggid, the Mezucha Maggid, about that they were Malachim Mamish. And Mamish, let him go, let him look after himself, and you go your way. The very fact that Yaakov went looking for Esav, deliberately searching for his goodwill, that was a mistake, says the Ramban. But once he already is meeting with him, then it's also relatively natural that a guy who's much stronger than you in Gashmi is, that you act to him in a certain balbatish neiv. And there what the Ramban brings, but I get to much later on in history, the famous Ramban, he mentions it here briefly, but he talks about it at great length right over at the end of the Sefer Vayikra, Pasha B'chuchotai. The Ramban said a similar thing happened with the Romans and the whole Indian of Eretz Yisrael at the time of the Churban and Bai Sheni. That it could be that Malachatchila the Romans weren't interested in conquering Eretz Yisrael. That it was a whole mindset that one of the kings that he was mamish at the end of the whole, what he was sorry from the Bnei B'nayim Shalhulidis, that they weren't the emes of mamish, the emes of Malach Yisrael, and they sent to Rome and they wanted to make a whole bris with them. They wanted to make a whole agreement with the Romans, and the Romans sent representatives to meet the king who was sitting at that time on the throne of Eretz Yisrael. And when they got to Eretz Yisrael, they looked around, they saw the base of Mikdash, they saw the whole Eretz Yisrael. They said, oh, this should belong to the Roman Empire. What's this doing over here? And we haven't conquered it yet. So that began to give them the whole idea that they would gradually expand the so-called Roman Empire. Yamak Shemom Ad Eretz HaKodesh. And the Ramban says you don't have to Chila go looking to make a bris mit Kagoyim. You don't make a covenant and a political agreement with Goyim. For fact, the Vayishlach HaRegel, there's no riot that they're going to check with you. V'ulai kulei v'ulai u'mistama, they won't do anything beloved. And a similar thing we find when I get to Avraham Avinu mit Avimelech, where he made a bris mit Avimelech. And it comes again, the Rashbam, what he was Rashi Seinikor, that's one on, he was direct grandson of Rashi, the Rashbam. He comes along and he says that was a very serious Kavayocha. I can say anything about Avraham Avinu, that was a serious error to make a bris with Avimelech. Because what was the bris? That they wouldn't interfere with his children, not his grandchildren, not his great-grandchildren. And so the Rashbam Tainas, that Avraham Avinu learned the whole Torah, as he should know that those people were going to be living in Eretz Yisrael, that the Eretz Plishtim is part of Eretz Yisrael. Ashdod, but the other Sachen, that's part of Eretz Yisrael. And remember, the Plishtim that were living Ba'ishas Man, when the Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael, they were under the cloud that you have to destroy all the Goyim in Eretz Yisrael. The fact that Avraham Avinu made an agreement with him that he wouldn't kill him, but that was a serious misunderstanding on the part of Avraham Avinu, and it cost a lot of tzaras later on because they didn't know how they're going to kill off the Plishtim, and so Lamaisa they didn't. And there was tzaras and tzaras for Plishtim, Meshach Kama v'Kama Doirei, as a well-known big tzara. David HaMelech had tzaras with him. He didn't know if he could wipe them out altogether or if he didn't, because of the bris. So the Rashbam Mamish goes to town directly of Avraham Avinu. It's very, very sharp. And he says the same thing with Yitzchak, that later on, Avimelech, the Zelbal Avimelech, he came to Yitzchak and he was scared that maybe Yitzchak would interfere with him, and Yitzchak weitergemacht a bris. He also made a bris with Avimelech. So the Ramban says a similar thing we're going to tell you. Esau, mit Yaakov, that Yaakov didn't need to go looking for Esau. Let him go, so let him go his way. And trust in the Eibishter that he looked after you ad koi, and he's given you all the brachas ad koi. So Mustaman, nothing will be. He won't chopper with you. And Yaakov went looking for him. Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim. I remember according to the Ramban, that was Yaakov Avinu's, as it were, Kaviochel, miscalculation. But it had to mean that once he did meet up with him, that he said with that he sympathizes somewhat with Rashi, that ain't no chanami. If you meet up with somebody who's incomparably stronger than you, then you have to be a little bit balabatish if you want to make peace with him. And therefore, even the Ishtachavoye is the bowing down 7 times, and it's the Ad Chedikah. What's so terrible? As is stated in the Ramban. However, the intelligent reader finds it hard to swallow the Vikumtas that Yaakov was so misbattled to Esau by even because that he bowed down to him 7 times. So if we move into the Medrashim of our Seizer, we move into the Medrash Rabbah, that's fallen on it. The Medrash is brought down in Hayom Yom, that the Medrash is a move into the Olam HaDrush, v'korav l'fi omim l'olam ha'soid. When you go up into the Medrash, then you're moving into the area of a more broader interpretation, sometimes even similar to the Inyan from Pnimis HaTorah, to Inyan HaSod. So we find that there's a Medrash, that the Medrash looks at it 3 ways, we could say. It's brought down in Medrash Rabbah, and in Medrash HaGodel, and Medrash Tanchum, and Medrash Chazal. And one looks at it like we saw, B'derech Rashi, that Yaakov had no brera, he had to kowtow somewhat to Esau. And then there's another Medrash which says that how come that he called Esau Adoni, and he said he was Eved, that Rachmanin Nitzlan, or that was Goyim, that later on Yaakov Esau got the upper hand. That the fact that Yaakov Avinu was misbattled to him, or that gave a koyach and a power to Esau, that he would be able to have a hold over Yankov, even though mitzad the brachas, Yankov should have the hold over him. The fact that he called him Adoni SHK P that's later on at the end of the parsha. We talk about the 8 kings that they ruled in Edom before there was any king Be'eretz Yisrael. And it's well known that the Arizal said that that's the remez to Olam HaTohu. That's the remez to the spirits that they were in Olam HaTohu. Olam HaTikun. But that was the union of a very high but very powerful oil prior to the era of Olam HaTikun, prior to the union of Yankov Avinu. And that's a very powerful and tremendous Gilui, which later wasn't the way it was meant to be, mitzad pnim mitzad kavana, and therefore things ran wild in the world, and therefore there was such a union as Shviras HaKeilim, as it's brought. And Esav, Mishum Zeh, mitzad the Yerida, Shebeklalos HaIlam, until the Chuvna, the Beis HaMikdash, Esav got the upper hand, Rachmon Nitzlan. So according to the Medrash, that was all because Yankov Avinu was prepared to bow down and call Esav Adoni, as they state in the Medrash. And then there's another Medrash which says that the emes is that later, a few Pesukim later, Esav says to Yankov, come on, let's go together. Yeah, we'll come with me and we'll produce, we'll progress in our ways together. So Rashi says that he said we'll be Neilech B'Shova, let's go equal. So it's brought down in the Medrash over there that Esav said to Yankov, listen, you're a pretty powerful guy, I'm very powerful, let's split the whole world into two. We'll split the whole world into two. You rule part of the world and I'll rule part of the world. They stated in the Medrash. And then we'll get on good, then there won't be any problems. You'll rule the whole huge part of the world and I'll rule the other part. And probably we'll be satisfied and we'll be busy. And we won't have time to quarrel and it's a adult's good time. So Yankov Avinu says to him, oh, no, you go ahead and I'll go around and a hin and a hair. Yankov Avinu did everything to avoid that possibility. And he says, oh yeah, like Rashi brings it, when it will be the day of Moshiach, then I'll come up to you, Baha Tzion Lishpeit Eshar Eisa. In other words, that Yankov Avinu said, you keep going in this world, I'll meet you up at the time of Moshiach. As he stated in Rashi brings it down to the Pashta. So, Lafizeh, Yankov Avinu saw that it wasn't a good offer to be a partner in the whole world with Esav, and he said to him, you go ahead, and what is brought down in the Mefarshei HaMedrash, and as it appears in Pshat from the Indian, that in effect Yankov Avinu said, you run the world, and I'll even have to be in Golos by you. Although I don't want that we should split the world, I don't want that we should have partnership together in the world, you be the Balabas, however much you manage now. After that, I'll take over the whole world, Belavochi. Because there's going to come my representative, Melech HaMashiach, and he'll take over the ganze Geschäft. So as a Sel Teshayla, why did Yankov Avinu want that? Well, it's not a bad offer, have half of the world, and you'll be at peace with Esav, he'll sit in some huge part of the world. Yankov Avinu sits in Eretz Yisrael, and everything would have been all right with her. It's a good time. Maybe there wouldn't have been all the terrible things that happened in history for Chayetza there. So Yankov Avinu says, no, he said, you look after the world now, I'll go my way, and it'll take me time. And you notice, he says, I will go very slowly. I'll take it easy, because I got a lot of children, I got a hin, I got hair, and you go ahead, and you'll have your part now, and I'll have mine. When there'll come the moment, then I'll take over altogether from you. And the end of the time, so come days that Yankov Avinu was almost in agreement that for a long time there would have to be time, would have to be a union for Liati, for Erikot, for Zman. I told the Shadow, what was Yaakov Avinu saying? Asked him, it should take such a long time. Yeah, we want Mashiach now. They weren't even wanting, saying, oh yes, you look after the world, you run the world. And it stayed in the Zohar Kodesh that he said, Afilu, I will be by you begolos. Ich will sein bei dir in Golos. So I told the Shadow, who should do it? As and Mamela, Lefi said, he had to show Esav a certain bittul. And therefore he called him Adini, and that was the ending of the Ishtachavoyas, and he bowed down to him, Mamish Kipshute, to show that right now you have the upper hand, you're the Balaban. So comes along another, that's two opinions in the Medrash. The third opinion in the Medrash is that in Emerson, Yaakov Avinu, when he bowed down 7 times to Esau, and also it's Mashma, when he called him Adini, he wasn't talking to Esau. He wasn't talking to Esau. I said, so who was he talking to? And he was talking to the Rabbeinu Shalom. And when he bowed down Sheva Piyomim to the Rabbeinu Shalom. To the Eibishter. And actually, there's an opinion in the Medrash that the Eibishter Lamaila in the court, the heavenly court, there's like 7 different courtways, 7 different courts and levels of courts, and what he did, what they judge, and a hin and a her. Yaakov Avinu had to go through all the 7. But he got in front of the Eibishter in the end, and he asked for Midas Arachamim, etc., etc. But the whole bowing down was in order to get through the different levels of the Beis Din Shemaila. He was bowing down to the Eibishter, not to Esav B'Klal. What it does? All of a sudden he sees Esav and he's bowing down to the Eibishter, not to Esav. So the trick to it all is that what does it mean, that expression, V'hu over Lifneihem, that he went around in front of them and then he bowed down to Esau 7 times. Why does it have to be written that he went in front of them and then he bowed down to Esau 7 times? So it comes along the opinion of the Medrash, which goes according to the second opinion, or even the first opinion, that it's okay that he bowed down and it's understandable according to the calculation. How it was then was that Yaakov Avinu wanted to protect, having been taken somewhat by surprise, he wanted to protect his wives and children, so therefore he went first. He went first, and he said, whatever will happen to me first. And even the Medrash praises Yaakov Avinu in that particular prat, that he was, how do you call it, Anav HaRachaban on his children. He took Rachmanis on his wives and children, that if anything should happen, it should happen to him first. And does it pshat hu over lifneihem. However, it's written in the Zohar Kodesh that hu over lifneihem is not referring to Yaakov Avinu, but it's referring to the Eibishter. Who means who. Who, how you do it? The Eibishter over lifneihem. That Eibishter went in front of them all, and Yaakov Avinu saw that as he bowed down. Sheva Piyomim to the Eibishter. There's a whole Maimon Chassidus. I think it's either from the middle of it, from the Tzemach Tzedek, begins with that pasuk, Who over Lifneihem, and a whole beer about the Eibishter. Dit trekt Yaakov Avinu. So as a sort of the gewaltige Scheile, Yaakov Avinu was a Yid that he was always in front of. I mean, he always had the Eibishter in front of him. And particularly that it's written at the beginning, of last week's parsha, that the Eibishter said, I'm going to guard you and look after you, and I'll go with you, and I'll be with you. So the Eibishter is with Yaakov Avinu B'Lavach. The Eibishter is always with him. Wujep right now. All of a sudden the Eibishter comes into play here in a way that he wasn't normally, as it were. The Yaakov says, oh yeah, here's the Eibishter. The Eibishter has been with him the whole time. The Eibishter has been Yaakov Avinu standing. And it's brought down in many places by the tzaddikim. They have a certain shmirah, a tremendous guardianship that David looks after them and guards them. He's always with them, isn't he? And remember, Asher told the gewaldige Scheile, was it over Lifneim and Young Vinu bowed down. So come along some of the great Meforshei Zoya, and they say that what happened here was that because it was such a mokim sakona and such a terrible, dangerous moment, that the Eibishter appeared at this particular point with a much greater madrega of Gilui than he normally does. Even the Gabi Ayid like Yankiva, even the Gabi Azayid be Yankiva Vina. And there was a tremendous Gilui at the Eibishter to prevent and to guard Yankiva Vina at this dangerous moment from Esau. I put down the Gemara Masechta Pesachim, and the Gemara says that at the time of a dangerous moment, then you need much greater Gilui Alakus and more Siyata Dishmaya with a Gamsarita Sa'inim. And at that particular moment, there was a much greater Gilui Alakus which occurred, and Yaakov Avinu was aware of it. And he saw that the Eibishter over Lefonav in a Zamadrega, which is not the way he was usually aware of Elikus. Cloud. And he saw that the Eibishter came between him and Esau, as it were, and so all he did was he bowed down to the Shekhinah, or to even Lamayla Shekhinah, to Etzem Elikus. And what happened is that Esau thought he was bound to him. And remember, everybody was pleased. Yaakov Avinu wasn't bound to Esau. He was tefritten that he was bound to such a tremendous revelation of the Shekhinah. And Esau was pleased, and he said, oh, here we go. 7 times he bowed down. Ad Kedikach, that the Medrash brings the pasuk, Sheva Yipoel Tzadik B'Kom, that sometimes the Tzadik has to fall 7 times. The Alter brings it in Tanya, in the Chinuch HaKot, that little piece between Sefer Shalbeinim and Shara Ira, the little mimer called Chinuch HaKot or Chinuch Koton. Dort the Alter brings them pasuk Sheva Yipol Tzadik V'Kom, but sometimes the Tzadik falls down 7 times in order to get up. Also upon him, Lefi Zeh, Yaakov Avinu B'Klal wasn't bound to Esau. He stayed in the Zohar. And the Zohar Kodesh brings a dogma from them. So I don't know if you guys know, there's a story about David HaMelech, that he met up with a very unpleasant guy called Novel. What Novel means, it's a bad name. The word Novel is a bad word. It means an unpleasant person. How do you call it? A grober mensch in Yiddish. Novel was his name. So it's written that David HaMelech gave him a whole gans and a bracha. He said, Tevata Shalom, or Beishka Shalom, V'Kvela Shalom, and Hashem Shalom, and he gave him a whole tremendous bracha. As he stayed young, David HaMelech benched Novel. So the Zohar Kodesh said, what did you do? So the Zohar Kodesh said, no, he wasn't benching Novel. He was benching the Rabbeinu Shalom. And he used the expression, Koi Lechoi, and that's 2 madregas in Kedusha, Yichud, of Sfiros HaYesod, with Sfiros HaMalchus, and the Alter brings that in Likutei Torah in Pasha Netovim, in the Maimah, the Haftarah in Pasha Netovim. It's a big long Maimah over there says, Tosis, V'Sogel Nafshe Belakoy, a huge big Maimah for the Alter. Right near the beginning, he tights that moment, he brings from the Zohar HaKodesh, that the Kavanah was, and therefore the Zohar HaKodesh in Pasha Va'era, not in this Pasha, but in another place, the Zohar HaKodesh said it was Rosh Hashanah. When David met up with Noel, peaked to go in Rosh Hashanah. And therefore David wasn't thinking about Noel, he was thinking about Rosh Hashanah, and so he benched Noel with the Indian from Koi Lechoi. V'atu Sholem v'Veishka Sholem. So the Gemara, the Zohar says, Akashia, how come that David HaMelech used all these names of the Eibishter and he put them on a Rosh? He said to a Rosh. So the Zohar, no, he didn't mean Novel until he meant the Eibishter. And Novel was a Rosh, a Tipish, he thought he meant him, so he was he was very pleased about it. So once again, the simple reader, and the L'chari can ask you what you might call a klotz kasha. a little simple, you know what a klotz kasha means? It's called a bake swallow. You ask from the belly a question. It's not really a real question. It's called a klotz kasha. In other words, it's a slightly amusing question, but it's got a point to it. And that is, how come David HaMelech benched Novel? And Novel thought that he was getting a tremendous bracha for the king. And David HaMelech didn't mean him because he meant the Rabbeinu Shalom. That's what's called deception. That's called, in Lashon HaGemara, Genevas Das HaBriyah. You're not allowed to steal the mind of other human beings. You're not allowed to deceive them. Because if you say something to somebody, you've got to mean it. You can't say one thing and really mean an idea. And particularly in this particular case, here he's giving you a gewaldige bracha and really didn't mean it because maybe he meant einfach gesagt. You are. Dat gewusst wer das ist. Wat is dat? Oh, I see Moses to be amused by the kasha. But so, to my pleasant amazement, I found that the Zohar Kodesh in another place asked to do that kasha. In the Zohar itself, written the kasha. And on exactly the same Maisa, on the Maisa with David HaMelech Novel, mamish the same thing. The Gemara says, Ramoy is to blias have. It's like deceiving other people. They call it deception of the mind. Genevus das habriyah. So just to make it even greater, comes again the Chidah. You guys ever heard of the Chidah? He was one of the great Meforshim. Beniglo Benista. He lived. How long ago was the Chidah? He lived about the time just after the Baal Shem Tov. He lived his whole life in Eretz, so he was in Hebron. He was the Rav in Hebron. He wrote Pirushim on, you name it, he wrote it. Anywhere and everywhere, he wrote Pirushim. So he's got on the Zohar Kodesh, he's got all these little amazing, little ha'oras that he writes all over the place on the Zohar Kodesh. So pinked on the Zohar Kodesh comes again the door. And he says, David HaMelech is deceiving Novel by saying to him these things. And he sends up to a Tosfos with the Rashi in Masechta Kiddush, in Masechta Git. An amazing thing. He said, what's written in the Gemara? That's a Mishnah with the Gemara. It's written at the end of the 5th parak of Gittin. It's written that if you meet a goy, you're allowed to say shalom to him, but you're not allowed to double shalom. You mustn't say to him, oh, shalom, shalom. How are you? Once is up. And the Mishnah says, mitnei da'af shalom. To be nice and proper towards the goyim, you have to ask how they are. But not double. Nicht lo likfol. So the Gemara brings a ma'aseh there. Rav Kahana, whenever he met a dignitary from the goyim, then he would say, Shalom Aloch Mar. He would say, peace to you, my sir. Mar means like Adin. It's a posh way of referring to somebody. Mar. Sir. Sir. So he said, how do you do, sir? So after Rashi taught an amazing thing. You look at Rashi, you can't believe that he said it. The Rashi says that Rav Kahana, when he did that, when he met a goy and he would say to him, Shalom Aloch Mar, he wasn't meaning the goy, but he was thinking of his Rebbe, of his Rav in Torah, and he meant him. But the goy was tefriden that the goy thought he meant him. Oh, but he really meant his Rav. He's dead. So people wonder, what's with Rashi for? Why does he say that? I mean, everything looks normal. He just said to him, you're allowed to say one time shalom. I said to him, shalom. Well, Rashi despises him. No, he's really thinking about his Rav. There used to be a Kohen here in Kochavad, Reb Foley Khan. You guys didn't know him. An amazing chassid. As he was a Kohen, so when he used to bench Birchas Kohanim, he used to say that he had in mind the Rebbe. Do you know he's benching the whole The whole tzibur, he used to think he had in mind the Rebbe. So you might say it was also Genevus Hadah. Everybody thinks he's benching them, he's not benching them, he's benching the Rebbe. So that's not a kasha. That B'chlal doesn't exist as a kasha. Because the Rebbe is in the Shoma Klal, you bench the Rebbe, you bench As B'dor B'mayr. Das ist nicht kein Problem. Anyway, comes along Tosfos over there, in Gittin, and Tosfos says, wait a minute. He said, what's it that Rashi says that when he said Shalom Alech Ma, he's really thinking about his Rav. So Tosfos says, Hareze Goyin of Dasa Abliyoi. He's deceiving people. He said to him, Shalom Alech, and he's pleased. Oh, but really he meant his Rav. He meant you can go to who knows what. Shalom Alech Ma, meaning his Rav. So the Tosfos says that Goyin of Dasa Abriyat, and the zweite Sache is what on earth did Rashi need to write that call the cloud? Everything is kosher. You're allowed to bless him once. You're just not allowed to bless him twice. So Tosfos you don't understand Rashi not from the beginning, not from there. And what did Rashi need to write all that for? Sagt the Chido there in the Zohar, he said if you look carefully in the Zohar then you can understand Rashi. Because what happened? David HaMelech said to Novo, a whole series, but he didn't really mean it. He meant the Eibishter. He didn't mean him. He meant the Eibishter is a simon that's not Genevus Das Abriya. It's Mitzadei Tam. It's not Genevus Das Abriya. Otherwise, David HaMelech wouldn't have done it. I was the kasha that you can't say twice. You can't say twice, but once you can say. Das the Chido verantwortet nicht der kasha. The only thing I can suggest is, it seemed to me that with the pshat in Tosfos, Tosfos understood Rashi this way. That why did he have to say Shalom Alech Ma? Was it a dignitary name? He could have just said Shalom Alech. It would also be good. To go and be pleased. Was it something Shalom Alech Ma? But then that Ma means a push. Yeah, a posh person, that's like as if he's doubling up, the bracha. But as far as Rashi, no, he's not. When he said Mar, he didn't mean him, he meant Israel. One time Shalom he did give him. We can get Rashi, we get Rashi out of the Kashya. However, we see that the Chido says that there's no worry about Genevus Das Abriya for who is, because we see that David HaMelech did it too. Oh, and he brings another, the Zohar brings another case, but we can't sort of go into too many cases. We're getting complicated enough as it is. I start looking at another sefer, and he says that if you look in the Zohar Kodesh itself, in Pasha Va'iro, in Shmois, then the Zohar Kodesh itself answers the kasha. And the Zohar Kodesh says that it's not Genevus Das Abriya. That's what David said to Novo, to Shalom and the young Tzedus. And Novo thought he meant him, but he really meant the Eibishter. It's not Genevus Das Abriya. Says the Zohar Kodesh from Wuiz, that if you mean the Eibishter, and you mean Erlich, and you really mean the Eibishter, it doesn't matter what other people think. And that's not Genevus Das Abriya. It's not called Genevus Das Abriya, since you mean perfectly, with a perfect heart, you mean the Eibishter. The other guy thinks you mean him, that's his problem. So I saw it for foolish. There's a big pirush on the Zohar called the Oyer HaChama. The Chido calls him Zohar HaChama. On my sefer it's Oyer HaChama, but it's the same sefer. He apparently had another name, Zohar HaChama. But he says that if you think about it carefully, then nobody's really at fault here. David HaMelech really meant the Eibishter. So did Rav Kahana. He meant his Rav. He didn't mean anything bad. On the contrary, he meant perfect. He meant the Eibishter. He meant Ella. Oh, this guy thought he meant him. That's his problem. In other words, he's the one that's making the mistake. If he would have been a more idle person, he would have realized that David HaMelech was talking only to the Eibishter. That's his problem. But nobody deceived him. Keiner nicht to see. What does it mean when you deceive somebody? Deceive somebody is you dream around in Kopf a thing which is not true, Beklau. To dreist him around a Zach, what that thing is Beklau not right. And therefore he acts under a toast, mi masha ta'amatala. Oh, you didn't say anything to me, you just said to the ocean, Shalom Aleichem Rabbeinu Shalom. Go to stick it up. I know what he took it, but like the Gemara says, Iyu di afsi da nafshe. He lost, he's the one that lost for himself. As he stated in the Erech Hamo. After Zohar. Silly plug. Also von him, Lefise kommt to is that Yaakov Avinu didn't bow down to Esau. Yaakov Avinu meant the Rabbeinu Shalom. He bowed down absolutely, and he said, Adoni yesh lev, and it's also the same thing. He meant the Rabbeinu Shalom. Esau was pleased anyway in that time. Ma tevu ma noy. That Esau was pleased. In the far, Rashi says that they don't have made a whole fuss about the ganze Indian. Do that again, boy, and you're out on your neck, okay? Seriously. Okay, so put it away. We don't need any toilet paper. There's some Chassidish Yidden held that during Ashira in Torah you shouldn't mess around with toilet paper anyway. I told you guys about it once. I can even mention to you who it was. He was one of the very choshev Toishuvim Chachabat. And he said it's also the whole toilet paper, and I'll tell you where you're learning different Torah, because it comes from the Torah. Anyway, you guys don't appreciate a joke. But anyway, it's not a joke. I think I'll open the boil. Anyway, it's a gezerah she'ena tzibah yochel lamid boy. You can't make a gezerah that tzibah can't keep in it. Or at least not to throw it one to the other, Hashem Yishmai. And the fact, it comes out if he said that Yaakov Avinu really meant the Shekhinah. And he saw the Shekhinah, but even Naila b'Yesa, b'Esau's ma. And Esau was pleased. Esau got mandig zufrieden. And everything was all going good. It's a man that Yaakov Avinu said to him, listen here, you want to divide up the world, and we just live forever, half. No, it's either you or me. In other words, the world's got to be under your control, or it's got to be under my control. It's nicht half. If you like this world, it's written, Yitzchak said to you live on your sword. If you take that part of it, and I'll take, you won't Mashiach now, I'll take the world of your Moshe Mashiach Vahala. That's it. Adla Neitzat Neitzochim. I'd save, I'd save Kol HaSeifim. Edefa, Yaakov Avinu was looking towards a whole new Indian, even though he knew it would take time. And he knew that time would maybe not be a Poshet time. So we have to understand who's the Indian Bazir, my Indian Bazir. However, before we begin that, we see one of Givaldige cloud that comes out of the scene. That Yaakov doesn't have anything really ultimately to talk to Esau. Ein lo ma'ale deber im Esau. He and Esau are not the same Indian cloud. And if Yaakov, when he wants to talk to Esau, he has to talk to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Not talk to Esau B'Klal. He has to talk in Yonim for Kedusha, in Yonim Tevim, V'Nailim, and Esau will just go along with Derech Mamel. He'll like it, he'll be very pleased and flattered. And what he doesn't understand, I think that's referring to him. He'll be happy with the conversation. Because that's what Esau's like. He's a good yes. Every now and then he likes to have a dog to the bone, and he said, a bone to the dog, I'm sorry. And he takes it and he thinks, oh. So in the end, he ends up pleased, Esau. But if you talk to Esau, giving him the impression that he's the balabas, well, then you cause endless trouble. And you're involved with the whole Seder of the world. And instead of the world progressing swiftly towards Yaakov taking over, Rosh Hashanah in Islam, you push the whole clock back. Hashem Yishmarech. You push the clock back in such a way that Esau's hold on the world becomes rusty and vergrept. It becomes bad and dirty instead of being just what it was. And you should realize it's an amazing thing that this whole Indian that began in the Parsha where it's written Al B'chotichya. And an amazing thing I wanted to see. I was in the city of Leeds and I've seen quite a bit of the country around, and one day I felt I needed to get some fresh air, and I said I'd like to see the city of Leeds. I've been there, but I've never seen the city of Leeds. So I called up a taxi driver that I happen to know him over there. I said, how much would you take to give me a drive around Leeds? He said, kaf for kaf. I said, we've done a deal. And he came and he took me out and he drove me around the city of Leeds. So we're driving along, and all of a sudden we see this huge, unbelievable shchuna. It's a huge series of big buildings, a huge building, very big building. And in the middle there's an even more huge building. It's got a great notice on it. So I said to him, what's all this? So he said, that in there with that big notice on it, he said that is a history of the arms of the British nation. Arms, you know how they call it? Weapons. He said, that's a history of the weapons that have been used by the British nation over the generations. I said, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, they've got in there all the things the knights had, and all the swords and all the spears and all the masts, and then all the things that gradually, how the tanks develop and how the cannons develop and how the guns and the big long muskets and the more up-to-date one. He said, you can go in there, and he said, it would take you 2 days just to go through the whole thing one time. But Mahira, swiftly. Take you 2 days. People go, and they leave at the end of one day, they come back another day, and he said, what's all the other buildings around? He said, there used to be an old slum area around that years ago. So he said, they can't have that. That is the most wondrous museum that exists in the British Isles. We have to make it posh all around. So they built these huge posh buildings all around it to make it look posh. So we get a bit closer, and there's these huge pictures of guys diving at one another with spears and all this all over the place. I couldn't move my eyes. I just, mommy saw it, bring all these little kids, and they saw all these huge pictures of people going on. Is it any pity that the Goyish world looks the way it does? And he said, I couldn't believe it. I mean, huge. I mean, pictures as big as this whole part of the wall up to the end of that thing there. Huge, big pictures of guys going for one another like this, with swords and with spears and with huge. And a billion must be worth millions of English pounds, millions of them. And then other buildings around, they took down all this old shchuna that they had there, and they built it up. Avim zozen, what's it, the arms? Al B'chotichya. Esau's whole high is his weapons. The history of Esau was what kind of weapons ought to go? No. And that's the whole meaning of the terror. The whole meaning of the terror is Al B'chotichya. You have to get your way only by the sword. There's no other way, and that is the only way. And Amir comes again do the Mishugoyim do, and they say, oh yes, there's another B'chotichya called the Hamas. And Amir, we have to make them the Balabatim of the ganze Welt. We have to say that Eretz Yisrael belongs to them. Remember, all the Esau's throughout the whole world, with the huge museums, take out all their weapons out of the museums, and they say, oh yes, here we go. Remember, you get terror all over the world. And it's so simple, 2 and 2 is 4. Say partial. That they're talking here to these guys, they're saying, you guys are going to rule over Eretz Yisrael. And if they're going to give them Madagascar, it's a tragedy. But they're going to give them Eretz Yisrael. And they say, oh no, these are the rules of the Middle East. Hamas, the mamish, all of them, a bunch of mixture of Esau and Amalek and who knows what, they're not even Arab. Arabs will Holocaust is Ishmael. And they're just a bunch of unbelievable professional criminals. And they're going to make them run the whole world. So they asked, who is responsible for the terror? As I asked you, who is responsible? Poor old America's got 300,000 soldiers running around like a lot of ants in Afghanistan and Pakistan, face first, looking for a few Muslim Al-Qaedas or whatever, and the whole thing is over here in Jerusalem. Die ganze Sache ist in Jerusalem Al-Qaeda. Ah, shugoi. And das ist the whole thing of Al-Khabar Khatikya. And the next day, after I'd seen it, I drove around the city of Fleet. The next day, I heard what was happening in one in Islam over there. Hashem Yishmari. First of all, I had to have Isaiah's bonnet. The next day, I hear something nice. I couldn't believe it. I just how did you can't believe this? Kach is it. I'm here. Those are the Indian that if you give in to Esau and you bow down to that's what happened. He says, Al-Khabar Khatikhi. Yankavina didn't bow down to Esau. Yankavina bowed down to the Shekhinah. And Esau, he helped to such a higher man. This guy, something I'm very pleased of who he's ever snitched. He's not in it. It's not as simple as it looks, the whole thing. And the same with Novel. But he's on the Meforshim in the Zohar Kodesh. The Sof Kosof, they know the Emma. They base. And therefore it's not Geneva's Das or Priest. If there's any mistake, that's their mistake. And if you tell Esau the Emmas, and you say, listen here, Esau, I don't have anything to say to you. I talk to the Rabbeinu Shalom. I talk Al Pi Torah. What the Torah tells me, that's what I say. After a while, Esau loves him. Who Murutzeim there? And the whole Inan of Olu Moshiach Bahal Tzid Lishpeit Esau didn't have to be so long. And the Rebbe said that Moshiach should have come years and tens of years ago. And Moshiach darf kommen jetzt in dem Regen, mamish kipshutoi. And the whole reason is because the Rahman in the land, nobody's worried to say the right thing. I feel the Fruma Yidden are draining the room, looking for another few million to put into their yeshiva. Well, the yeshiva is a tremendously precious thing. Aber not chas v'sholim at the cheshbon from the ganzen fate of the Jewish people in the world, beklal. That's in the Kuda, the whole Indian, that's the whole Indian of this part of the parish. Ask yourself the Shaila, why did Yankavina say, oh, now it's got to take time, and do it. And then you take over now and then later. So that's what telling citizens that that's the Soda Birurim. That's what with the Rizal called the Soda Birurim. That Yankavina saw that Esau's not ready. Why did he send it in Morocco? He thought he was ready. They state in a man from the Barashab that Yankov Avinu was ready for in Ein Beit. The state in Ein Beit that Yankov Avinu was ready for Mashiach. He'd finished in Beis Loven, he'd thrown Loven. Loven was in some ways worse than Esau. Loven was worse than all of them together. Loven was an unbelievable Gefährlich, come in. And Yankov Avinu finished with him, and he finished with all the Birurim. In Beis Loven, he was ready for Mashiach. They state. And therefore he sent to Esau to find out what's with Esau. Like he's been working so hard for 20 years to bring Moshiach. He thought that maybe Esau, sein Bruder, maybe he also had Tzveish geschockt. Something happened to him. He's got very high in the tilts in him. That's what Yitzchak Rabbeinu said. So he sent Malachim, real Malachim, to find out, because only Malachim really know what's really happening. Otherwise, if you send ordinary messengers, maybe they got a little bit of a nagia v'dova, maybe they like a little bit too much of me there, ma. And the fire he sent Malachim, Emerson Malachim, and they came back and they said, "Oh, sorry, old boy, but it's not on Esau just like he was." So therefore, Yankov realized it's going to take time. That he can't just hope that the whole world's going to swing into Yemois Mashiach. It's got to go to the Birurim. And that's what the Arizal was Megala, that the Indian from that point on, it started the Soda Birurim. And therefore Yankov said, I got to go slower. But the Indian from Birur takes time. It's a tremendous amount of Veda, Meshach, Kama Doiros. And therefore the Zohar Kodesh said, he said to Esau, you're going to have to hold now for a while I've got to go according to my way, but I'm on my way to you. It's just going to take time. The Chiddush of the Rebbe, so we see that Yaakov Avinu was the emes of Mashiach. Yaakov Avinu said that he's ready for Mashiach. And he's ready to bring the whole Indian for Mashiach. You see, the Esav not, so we have to do something. And therefore, he didn't give up Yaakov Avinu. He tried once more, and he sent Yosef to the Shvatim. Or he was hidden this time. Because the Shvatim were Neshamas, the Olam HaBriyah, and Yosef was the Neshama, the Pnimius HaAtzilah. And if I thought Yosef will bring them up into a Zamin elevation, that all of us together will be able to bring the earth of Moshiach. We see that Yosef had all the Goyim bowing down to him, all the Goyim were much partial to him, later on. There's a sign that Yaakov Avinu didn't miscalculate. Who miscalculated Nebuchadnezzar the Shvatim, but they had Bechira, as she given by Isaiah, Nebuchadnezzar. Like it's put in Medrash Chazal, but to a certain extent we still suffer from the Mechirot Yez. But they sold their brother. Anyway, Belila Hikonish Lazar, it had to take time. The Chiddush of the Rebbe is that it's finished. That's the Chiddush of the Rebbe. The Rizal said that you have to be Oivet Avedis HaBirurim, and it's a hard work. The Rizal in his time said we're getting close. It's close to the end. Some of the people who were living contemporary with the Arizal, they went to Miron and they said, we want Mashiach now. Zeb Gishri, the Charedim, they had a whole group of people. But they said, we want Mashiach now. Today's time, a Bilti movement, it's still been dragging along ad is my name was there. But the Rebbe said that it's already finished. Birurim is finished. And remember, since the Birurim are finished, they were Uyimet Mamish al Safagiyul. This is the record. That is the moment. And the Rebbe said it tens and tens of years ago. He said it from the first moment that he came into the Messiah, even before. And the Friedrich Rebbe said it. The Friedrich Rebbe said that after the war, this is the moment to bring Moshiach. The war was the last inning of Al-Chaba Chatifia. It was the last show of Esav that you can live by the sword. Look at the damage it did. That's my own. Says the Rebbe, no, that the whole thing is finished. Der ganze Seder zenigmar. The whole Seder now is to lekabel pnei Mashiach tzidkeinu. And the Rebbe told all the shulchim in that year, in Tov Shinun Dalet, the Rebbe said the whole Avedis HaShlichus is menit lekabel pnei Mashiach, lekabel pnei Mashiach tzidkeinu. And to our great sorrow, I don't want anything bad, I mean only good. For 2 or 3 years after that, the Kiddush HaShluchim wouldn't even print that Sikha. And they started talking all sorts of lovely things, making banquets and mouses and geschäften. Oh, but they forgot to talk about the Ika and the Kuda. The whole thing now is ready for Mashiach. The Kabul Pnei Mashiach did. Okay? Oh, but people are woken up now. I spoke with Shluchim in England, met up with quite a few Shluchim. Never mitzad azam mitzvot mais. And I heard from them that they're all ready now to talk about Mashiach. Things are changing. People are beginning to wake up. What is the Emerson Nakuda? What is the only Nakuda that can save the world? And forget about the Israeli leadership over here. It's finished. The whole Indian is a bluff and a criminal bluff. The ganze government over here, but the ganze Medina is meant to be a bluff. And the American leadership, I don't know, got over there, this nice father, until he'll raise the voice. Biza it's hoist drain is nobody knows what's going to be. Biza it's going to give them they think slowly, these guys. Biza tractor and biza hin and biza me there. Was of a time. The English they've got their own problems and their own drainage and their own tourism and they're not going to do anything. Who's going to do anything? Rat Lubavitch. Lubavitch will do it. Lubavitch can beat the whole the ganze terrorism of the Alvinyonim only if Lubavitch will talk in the name of the Rebbe Mamish Kipshute and say that Moshiach has to come, we want Moshiach now. Das is it. So that. And das is Yud Dalet Kislev. Das is the whole inyan of Yud Dalet Kislev. The whole inyan of Yud Dalet Kislev is that the Rebbe, through his kesher with the Friedrich Rebbe, came into the leadership of Lubavitch and remember the whole world. And that what happened over there in Bombay is a sign that that's the last thing now now before the Etzem Iskalos of Melech HaMashiach. They started with the Etzem Minim from Lubavitch, as Lubavitch will beat them. Nothing else. But we can only beat them if we're all be'achters. We've got to all get together and stop all this knowledge of mine says he a hin and her a hin, and I write an article about him and he said about me and I did. You have to forget the whole darn narishkeit. The ganze Drei-Koppenism that we get into in Lubavitch. It's just so silly. And I saw over there on my host's email, I don't know anything about emails, but I looked at his email, and there was a whole bunch of shluchim over there, they all right one to the other. Well, why didn't the chief rabbi mention us in his, after the whole thing had happened? Never after the ganze Maße, mit gewusst, was dort gewesen, and they're still hacking at China. Why didn't the chief rabbi mention Pliny? Why didn't he say that? But them interessiert that. Who is it interesting? And then there was a whole big discussion over the email. Who's going to come to the Levaya? Whether it's going to be the Rosh HaKehillas or the Sgan Rosh HaKehillas, or it's going to be the Shluchim or the Shluchei Shluchim or the Shluchim or the Shluchei Shluchim. Who's going to come to the Levaya? I've davon gehen auf Levaya, mit zu setzen. Little way says to me, oh, but that's what interests right now. Don't send the shluchim. Get them to do another 50,000 mitzvahs instead of coming to the Levaya. They're dancing a tremendous, nourish argument. Who's going to come to the Levaya? They even called up my host and they asked him, what does he think? He's got a bit of he's on one of the Anholas or something. Yeah, does he think that Pliny should go to the Levaya or Pliny? And I was there when he got the phone. I'm proud of him. Mamish Etzem Vayishlach, he said, listen, you guys drainage, you go, leave me alone. Send whoever you want. He more or less closed the fire. He didn't slam the phone on him. But he just said, listen, that's not the Ika now. Send whoever you want. So, then it's Nagayada. Now, weil man liegt in Narishkeit. Nicht in der Nekuda Saha Inu. Nicht in the Etzem. And I'm not saying that Chas V'Shalom, but way of Kitru, because I don't hold that we should be mekachik on anybody right now. We should only talk about the praises of Yidden. I'm just saying that there's a point where we've got to get ourselves into gear, and we've got to realize what the Rebbe wants, what is the Nekuda, and only the Rebbe can save the world, Lubavitch. Only Lubavitch and the Rebbe can save the world, but we've got to be emistic, and we've got to be ba'atas, and we've got to forget about all the Narish and Maas, with the Geschäften, with the Inyanim, the Duas, with the Yens. We've got to forget it. We've got to realize that when you talk to Esau, then you talk with him, even that you mean the Shechina. You talk directly to the Eibishter. And he likes it. At the end he says, oh yeah, that was good. Or if he sees it, you make him for the Balabas. And they say, oh yes, I'm really bowing down to you, not to the Eibishter. Oh, yeah, that's good. And that's what happens. Every time there's a new Rosh Memshala over here, he goes over to America, and everybody says, oh yes, he's going over because Americans are going to tell him what to do. It's not right. He goes over there to bow down to the Americans and to tell the Americans what they should be doing. Pirush, how they should be running the world, not the... And that's what happens every time. And this guy that everybody thinks he's a great macher, he's the most unbelievable schwitzer and ligner that's ever been born. And he begins with an N, or with a Nun. And he finishes with a Vav. So don't believe him. He's a shakran and a tippage, with all the inyanim what you could want in the world, plus the fact that he's a Draco. If you mustn't listen to those inyanim, you must know that only the Rebbe, only the Rebbe. It's Boduk and Manusa. It's absolutely built Yishum Sofi. And only the Rebbe told that the way to talk is, I say, even if you bow down, but you don't mean that, you mean Elikut. You mean the Rebbeinu Shalom. I had to take a bit of time. It took already the time. The time's finished. Nigmar. It's all completed and finished. And everything is ready for these Etzem scholars. All we've got to do is just sit around here in Kwakabad and say, we want Mashiach now. Yes, you also. You. Both of you. You got to forget about the old English occultkeit. Get it. It's good for the Anglim, but not for Kayidin. A Yid has got to be warm, he's got to bren, he's got to go out, he's got to throw everything aside, he's got to say, the aim is to fill the world, and man is wie Moshiach Tzidkeinu. That's it, ending. And take it from me out this for time. I mean, everybody's, the whole world's going down the drain. There's not a penny left anywhere. Never. I drove through some of these villages in England, and the guy was driving to me. He said, "You see those little shops? They're all closing down." He said, "In about another 6 months, there's not going to be any of those little shops open. So they can't hold out. They're not earning anything. Nobody's spending any money. Nobody's got any money. And everybody's got any money, he puts it in his pocket and buries it under his bed or under his under the stones in his backyard or so they don't trust the banks anymore." If I know that's it, and Hashem should help that Beis Hashem take it from Yad, we should be zeicher to, like Rashi brings, V'olu Moshiach Bahar Tzion, that'll come the emissary ones who know how to save the world. Yesh Lema does it the Lubavitchers. They're going to come up in Har Tzion and they're going to say, "Oh, yours. Now we're going to be Lishbei Del Har Ezer. We're going to be the judges and the balabos." And Omen Keni Rotzen and take of Miyad. So, if ze helpen zijn als tonight will be a verbringen. And Shabbos will be a Shabbos out, but I understand it's only a short Shabbos out. In other words, we want everybody back Sunday morning for Seder. Okay.
Very good, Sarah.